Class, in this lecture, we're going to look at using positive reinforcement in the classroom. So when it comes to positive reinforcement, as educators, it's essential that we are creating that environment that fosters motivation, encouraging engagement, and ultimately success for all our students. Positive reinforcement, it's a key concept that is derived from behaviorism, and it is widely recognized as one of the most powerful tools in shaping behavior and promoting learning. All right. So we know positive reinforcement, it's a behavior management strategy. And it involves some type of reward or system or incentivations that is going to produce a desired type of behavior. And positive, when it comes to operant conditioning in general, we do have negative reinforcement and we also have punishment. A lot of the times we get confused and we think that negative reinforcement is a type of punishment, but really negative reinforcement is using something that's kind of negative or annoying to get a desired behavior or outcome. So a good example of that would be our seatbelts. How now almost all cars have have the little beeping noise. So if you're not wearing your seatbelt, your car goes insane until you click it in, right? And then on the other side of that, negative reinforcement is about avoiding a certain outcome. So you would think a squirrel running up a tree to avoid being eaten by a coyote, that's a negative reinforcement because he's avoiding being eaten by a coyote. So therefore, that desired behavior is to get away, run up into a tree. Negative reinforcement would also be something like putting on sunscreen so that you don't get sunburned. So you see, that's a huge difference from the idea of punishment. Punishment is about reprimanding somebody for an undesired behavior. And a lot of times we have proven that punishment is not the best way to reinforce a behavior. And, positive reinforcement seems to be the best behavior management strategies. And we know when it comes to the classroom, that positive reinforcement can absolutely improve academic performance and create a more positive classroom environment. So, of course, our jobs as educators is to always set the tone and the example for our students in our classroom. And so, we always, because as educators, we work with a diverse body of different personalities and ethnic groups and sexual orientations and religions and all those things that make us human. It's important that we are setting the example for how we deal with that diversity and how we also go about handling conflict in our classroom. So the more that we can, reinforce positive reinforcement, not to be a little redundant there, but the better equipped we are to meet the needs of the diverse student body that we are in fact educating, and it's a way that we could get more positive responses from our student. It's that old saying, if you think positively, positive things are going to happen in your life. You think negatively, negative things are going to happen in life. So, it's not about being Susie Sunshine all the time. It's about just, being positive and productive in a way that is going to move everybody forward and make sure that everybody is learning. Because ultimately, the more positive reinforcement that we use in our classroom, the more then we're going to help students' self-esteem, students' self-efficacy, and then of course that's going to help their confidence, and they'll feel more motivated to do their best. All right. So when it comes to the benefits of positive reinforcement, it's an effective tool for improving student behavior. Positive reinforcement It's actually defined as the application of rewards or incentives to increase the likelihood of desired behavior happening again, right? And so we want to identify and reinforce specific behaviors that we're seeing in our classrooms, that we're seeing in our students, that's going to contribute to their academic success, their social skills, and, once again, just create that overall positive classroom environment. The more that we act as the educators to create that positive classroom environment, once again, the more motivated, confidence our students are going to feel in our classroom, and then in turn, that's something that they can take back out into their daily lives, and keep up that mentality, that kind of mood, and other things that they do in their life. Okay, so motivation and engagement are key concepts when it comes to positive reinforcement. So positive reinforcement, it's a type of intrinsic motivation. And so basically we have intrinsic motivation and we have an extrinsic motivation. So with intrinsic motivation, it's not about seeing some type of outwardly like physical product. It's more intricate. It means it's inside of. So it is more about how we feel mentally, emotionally, and not physically, but spiritually. And so it also helps us foster a love for learning, because we're taking these behaviors, or desired behaviors that we want to see our students not only acting out, but emulating, because, since we set the tone for the classroom, we're going to be exhibiting these types of positive behaviors that we want our students to exemplify, right? Or we want our students to model, is more what I should say there. All right. And then, of course, the more we motivate and engage our students, the more likely then the students are to engage in their studies, and want to actually participate in classroom activities, and participate in just the whole learning process. So behavioral guidance is another important tenet of positive reinforcement in the classroom. So by reinforcing these positive behaviors, we're providing clear expectations for how we want our students to behave. We're helping them develop self-regulation skills. So what we mean there is that we're teaching our students acceptable social behavior when they're in a group. And when it comes to secondary element education, especially from preschool up to the 12th grade, and that part of our development, we spend a lot of our time in the educational environment learning about different things, right? And so we're learning a lot of social skills in classroom. This is, from the student point of view, students are learning important social skills in addition to all the other cognitive skills and behavioral skills that they're teaching, right? You see how it all works together. It's like a triad there. And so when we're reinforcing those positive behaviors, we're going to see less disruptive behaviors among our students, and then that in turn, and once again, it's all about making our classroom environment as accepting, motivating, confident, positive, and productive as we can. Right. So when it comes to positive reinforcement, there are a few different types. And then we also have effective strategies. Okay, that's next. I didn't want to make sure I jumped ahead of myself there. So positive reinforcement. So we know it is a system of rewards or some type of incentive for, that you share with your students and with your class. All right. So, there are different ways that you can go about, promoting this type of behavioral technique to your students. Excuse me. I would discourage you guys from using the kind of candy type positive reinforcement that was popular for a little while in schools, but especially nowadays with the rise of obesity and especially here in the United States culture and how that is impacting children's health and their ability to learn. I like I said, I would discourage from using any kind of food type training as positive reinforcement. Now, as we already know from some of our other materials this week and even from last week, classical conditioning is all about stimulus response. And then, operant conditioning is a type of stimulus response too. But once again, we're looking for, well, no, with both of them, we're looking for desired behavior. But that classical conditioning that Pablo came up with, that is, what was largely based on some type of food incentive. And then, you see a lot of times when people go to train animals like dogs or horses, goats, whatever, they use treat reinforcements. And even with animals, we have to be careful of that because there is such a thing as too much. So, what are better types of positive reinforcement strategies that we can use? Verbal praise. Verbal praise is always a good way to elicit confidence, motivation, and a positive response from your students, and even take that out into our daily life, guys. Once again, treat other people how you want to be treated, and you're going to get more of the same type of response. So congratulating them when they get something right, not belittling or condoning, or well, not condoning, but belittling your students if they get something wrong. If a student gets something wrong, you don't just want to be out, oh no, that's wrong, you don't know what you're talking about, or any type of negative response like that. You've got to be able to phrase it in a way so that you're pointing out that no, that's not quite right, but you're not doing it in a way that the student is going to feel, like a lack of confidence, or feel like their self-esteem has been lowered. So just something to think about as we go through class. And as you guys, I know some of you are going into education, some of you are going into psychology, and a lot of these tips and techniques and strategies and these types of positive reinforcement that we were talking about, they really can apply to any type of situation. But I would say the only thing there is, I'm not sure if you're in a marriage, if you want to like give your partner like stickers or prizes for doing something good, that might not be a good thing. But then, if it works for you, then that's what works, right? Some type of tangible reward, excuse me, seems to produce good effects. There's the idea of learning. I believe it's Kepler Kellinger. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he came up with the whole idea of the token economy, and he did these experiments with these chimpanzees, and basically, to get a desired outcome, to get a desired behavior, getting something like think about slot machines. The reason that people sit there at a slot machine and they'll keep putting money in it and keep putting money in it is because it is a type of positive reinforcement when you actually do win and all the lights go off and then you have all the coins that fall out of the machine. That's all appealing to our senses. It's types of stimulation, because we have to think about that too when we're thinking about behavior. It's not just going to be those physical acts or those physical behaviors that we see change too. We also have to think about the other parts of what it means to be human, or just be alive. Like with animals, you got to include that emotional, mental, and spiritual sides of it too. So you want to create types of positive reinforcement that are stimulating all your students' senses. And then, that's just a way to help ensure that you have more grounded and kind of whole human beings. All right. And then, um, some other things that you could do, or maybe like create charts and depending on create charts and put gold stickers on it every day, and maybe at the end have like a box with some type of toys, or just something that would help the kids feel like they actually have accomplished something and motivate them, so the next week they're going to still want to do good in their studies and their learning and all in peer interactions and all of that, right? Um, Maybe even something like hand out coupons, so you can make up coupons for your student, and coupons for good behavior, or even just certificates of good behavior that they can take home to their parents and hang up on the refrigerator. Those are all good ways to encourage that behavior that we want to see in our classrooms. And of course, that desired behavior is always going to be attentive, motivated, engaging students, no matter what age group that we are working with. All right. And so, last, we could also do some kind of social enforcement. So, something that provides some type of positive peer interaction. So, just depending on the way your school system would work, or even once again your therapeutic setting would work, that could be the kids who did the best as far as behavior goes. Maybe you could bring animals into the classroom, or something along that line. That is something that's new, it's exciting, it's a little different, and it's going to be something that creates that positive peer interaction. Even things like finding games that you could somehow, reinforce that desired behavior. And it's a way for the peers, for the students to be interacting with each other. All right. So strategies for effectively using, oh, well, sorry, I'm reading that differently. Strategies for effective use of positive enforcement. So, it's a good idea at the beginning of class to think about, to define positive reinforcement, and it's important in the classroom. Every class, every therapy session that you're going to be in, every individual student or client that comes to you is going to be a little different. So, our jobs as the leaders of whatever that environment is once again, you got to set the tone for the environment. We always want to set that positive and productive tone. So, before you ever start any class, or, you do any therapy session, define what that means in your own mind and how you think it's important in your classroom. Maybe even put that in your outline. And, if that's something you want to share with your students on like the first day of class, that's perfectly fine. When you're going over the rules and giving them the whole layout of how the school year is going to be, it's all right if you want to define that positive reinforcement, because that's something that you can always refer back to. And then, the benefits of using positive reinforcement. This is where, as educators, even as psychologists, therapists, it's our job to teach our students. It's our job to listen to our clients and teach them various things like coping mechanisms, things of that nature. And so sharing the benefits of positive reinforcement, making that some kind of class group discussion. And it's a good way to learn something from your students, because you never know who's going to come up with something or think about it in another way from you. And, and those are then opportunities to use positive reinforcement. And so then when it comes to examples of effective positive reinforcement strategies, like we've already talked about, there some type of token economy, some reward in the form of stickers or toys is good. Making certificates. When you start getting up into older age groups, it might be a little harder, especially when you get to teenagers, because that's the most hormonal stage of our life, and sometimes that can interfere with the learning with the learning environment, right? So when it gets to those age groups, definitely verbal praise is always good for anybody, be it human or animal. Verbal praise is definitely going to produce positive results. And then just depending on what class you're teaching, the subject that you're looking at, I would say when it comes to adolescents, doing things that are important to them, like making a classroom activity that's more like a game, or figuring out what each student's emotional intelligence, their multiple intelligence, where do they really shine in those aspects, and then creating activities that relate to to those type of positive behaviors that you see in your students. And things like this works for college students. I do this in abnormal psychology. We do one activity where half the class they get it's like we're at a cocktail party and everybody has a personality disorder, and so half the class gets to act out those personality disorders, while the other half of the class we pretend that we're the therapists that are in there observing them. And so everybody walks around, listens to the discussion, watches everybody and takes notes, and then when we're done, we all say, we come back together as a big class and then, discuss those personality disorders. And then we go and we see if those of us that were on the lab side of it, if we were able to actually identify what personality disorder went with what character. Something like, if you're teaching a history class, social science class, doing things like that, getting the kids involved, to where they're acting things out, or playing games. That really, those really are two good strategies that don't have an age limit on them. They really appeal to different groups of people there. Okay. And then, of course, let me say here for just a minute, when it comes to effective strategies, we always want to make sure that we have clear and specific expectations. So we want to have those clear expectations for behavioral and academic performance. And, that helps our students understand what is better expected of them. And just clear communication in general is how we set that criteria for earning reinforcement, using positive reinforcement, and then, of course, getting those desired behaviors. Well, like I said, then we have varied reinforcement techniques. So we've already discussed a few of those, and I'm sure as you guys are listening to me kind of brainstorm some of these different strategies and ways that we can apply positive reinforcement with our students and classes, you've probably come up with your own. And if you do, please feel free to share those with me. So by varying our reinforcement techniques, it's going to help us cater to individual preferences and learning styles. And at the same time, too, it's going to kind of break it up, because you can get to a point to where if you're applying the same type of positive reinforcement all the time, it's actually going to get to a point to where it stops working. And so really great example. Let's go back to that idea of using treats. So with the goats, I can tell you this, a good way, if the goats, they're master escape artists, they're always busting out of their goat pen. I'm always fixing it. And most of the time, I've got these Folger coffee buckets and I fill them up with their grains and other kind of treat type stuff they eat. And I shake it. And as soon as I shake it, everybody on the farm comes running because they know that I have food for them. And so I have to break that up, because I can't, if they're getting out 5 times a day, and I'm not exaggerating, I can't keep giving them that much of that, their grains and their treat food 5 times a day, because that's then going to create an imbalance and it's going to be unhealthy for them. So I have to break it up. And sometimes I'll stick rocks down in there, because when you shake it, it sounds just the same. And, they they will come to that. And then, they also learn too, so if it's just a rocks, then they won't come at all because they're like, oh yeah, she's tricking us again, she just had rocks in there. So then I have to find another way to get them where I need them to go. And so I maybe like Chan, maybe I'll give them some carrots or something because that's not too bad for them to eat. Or I just use a lot of verbal reinforcement because just even by calling them and being like, goats, come on, goats, that is a type of, and saying treats is a positive reinforcement that they come to me. So, just to reiterate, some of our examples of effective positive reinforcement strategies are verbal praise, tangible rewards, certificates, privileges, or public recognition. And then, to kind of go along with my GOAT example here, we want our reinforcement to be timely and consistent. Like I said, you can't always, do the same thing and do it all the time because eventually, like goats, people are going to get tired and bored. And if they don't, because I'm thinking of like casinos, those people that get addicted, you have to worry about that. You have to think about that too. You don't want to create a type of positive reinforcement that's actually going to turn into a maladaptive behavior. So, my best suggestion, be timely, be consistent, but also be flexible and break it up too. All right. And think about individualization and differentiation. So, we're all unique individuals. And when it comes to, our classrooms, our students all have unique needs. And so, you have to really fill your classroom out and tailor the reinforcement strategies to the student. So that way you're accommodating for that individuality and that diversity. And then, gradually fading of the reinforcement. So, you reduce the frequency, the intensity once that desired behavior is established. And this is a good thing for human beings because this is another way of learning social skills and learning things like self constraint, right? Just because you can do something, it does not mean that you should do it, right? Because, you got ethics and morals that come into question too. So, by fading out your reinforcement style when you see those desired behaviors, this is going to promote self-regulation and independence in your student. And then we already talked about this a little bit, but that idea of intrinsic motivation. We want to encourage our students to develop intrinsic motivation by promoting a sense of completion, autonomy, completeness, and competence and relatedness. And so, when we foster that positive classroom climate, we're encouraging self-determination and a love for learning. All right, guys. So positive reinforcement, it's a powerful tool for motivating our students, shaping those positive behaviors, and creating an engaging classroom environment. And when we implement, effective strategies and we're following essential guidelines, as educators, we can leverage the benefit of positive reinforcement to enhance students' academic achievement, self-regulation, and overall well-being, as well as continue to cultivate that positive learning environment together. Because it's not just up to us as the educator, as the psychologist, to create that positive learning environment. It's about working with our students too. So, all right, guys, that concludes our lecture on positive reinforcement in the classroom. If you need me, reach out to me, guys. Thanks. I appreciate you.